All right, let everybody filter on in. Get the retweets out. All right. How many people we got in here? Awful game indeed, Fabio. Everybody go and check out Fabio on Coast to Coast later on tonight if you're tuned in and watching right now. We're gonna get the thumbnail up in a moment as Milan obviously get eliminated from Coppa Italia and have failed to win the competition for what will be the 23rd straight year in a row. I was 8 years old last time Milan won it. Matt, I think you were 11. However, I threw 10 probably because you have a later birthday. But yeah, more of the same from Milan in this competition. This match today kind of went how the way all three of us had seen it on Monday's recording with Sean McIntosh. Listen, Lazio were the better side from minute one, pretty much until minute 90. Better intensity, more cohesive unit. Milan had a lot more rotation than what was anticipated. Still no excuse for that. Lazio were just the better side. They deserved to win. Their chance was better. Milan, with their zonal marking, was really poor. De Winter, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, whoever you wanted to point the finger at, did a poor job. Loftus-Cheek and Leao really had poor finishing themselves. Milan had some opportunities, but overall, this was a Lazio side that deserved to go through to the quarterfinals of the Coppa Italia against Bologna. So, your initial thoughts, Matt?
This was pretty much what I was expecting. I predicted that it would go to penalties and Lazio would win. It looked like it was for, large parts of the second half that it was actually going to, in fact, go to penalties. And obviously, that's a toss-up at that point. But, credit to Lazio. I think they didn't really give Milan much space. They were very structured. They suffocated a lot of some of the space that Milan did manage to kind of get together. But look, this is a competition that we've talked about. We want to win this. We haven't won, as you mentioned, in over 2 decades. So the fact that we're still kind of keeping that streak alive means that this team just can't seem to prioritize this competition or get everything together and get up for this game, right? And I expected Lazio to come out and play a little bit more inspired, especially at home, right? I feel like they maybe left that game at the San Siro feeling like they left at least a point on the table. And, we can kind of unpack everything that happened in there. You guys can listen to that in the episode that we did with Sean. But ultimately, they got the header. I mean, some people might say Mike Maignan should have did a little bit better, but I don't think he really saw it clearly from the very beginning. And then it took Milan until being down to actually try to play forward. They had a couple chances late. Pulisic had a chance on target, forced a corner. We're forced to save, that got a corner for us, and then it was a short corner that Modric really didn't give a decent delivery in. But then again, we don't really have the players in the box that can get on the end of headers, right? We don't have the Giroud or the Ibrahimovic or some of those those physically imposing players in the box that you can at least pick out in those situations, and they can give you something, right? So Milan bow out of the Coppa Italia. They really don't have any excuses to get at a minimum top 4. I know Scudetto is aim, and that remains the aim, and Milan should still be obviously aspiring for that feat, but it's one competition, guys. It's one competition. They have a team that despite being atop the league table, have holes, and this isn't going to be simply one competition. Milan are going to win the Scudetto. Everything's going to be easy because they are predictable at times, and we can obviously get into maybe some of the more deeper details on the game.
Yeah, so shout out to Stinker for the quick turnaround. I think the details are pretty much, listen, these aren't excuses, but what I'm about to say and present in terms of the starting 11 will present issues within a match that faces a side at home in one of the toughest environments in Italy that has played very compact under Sarri. Pretty much, Patrick Kendrick pointed this out, that Lazio themselves have only played in one match this season that had both teams scoring. They either end up with Lazio not scoring or Lazio not conceding. And today was more of the same. For Milan, having in a brand new midfield trio that had never played together, on top of Estupinian getting back in the lineup, Loftus-Cheek got a position up top. Coney de Winter, huge change to put him to the central center back position. That is difficult. That's not easy. I thought he struggled out of the gate in
Yeah.
the first half. A little bit better in the second half, but he was shaky. I think all those things culminating made Lazio probably feel at ease compared to what Milan was fielding at San Siro. Because Ardon Jashari, as a whole, I thought played well. We'll get into him and his performance. But for me, when you have all that combination of stuff, stylistically, I don't think all these players fit together, especially when Loftus-Cheek has to be up top.
Yeah.
I think it was a culmination for not disaster, but a difficult path to score and play this sort of style that you want. Again, it's just Lazio were the better side. That's really what it was. They weren't leaps and bounds better than Milan, but for me, it was just sort of who had the clear cut chances, who was less sloppy. That was all Lazio all day. And much like the match a few days ago when they faced each other, who was going to be more decisive? Last time it was Milan. Today it was Lazio. They did a great job on that corner kick. Again, it's just poor. And Milan's finishing was bad. Again, they had at least 2 opportunities. Loftus-Cheek had a header struck wide, and then Leao hit it poorly on his left foot after Jashari placed in a fantastic ball. Estupinian did well. Milan were right there. And to your point, too, we didn't see a lot of life in them until substitutes were made late on into the game, where Milan really played well when they were down. In what was it? Like maybe like I would say like
80th minute, 81st minute.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing I was thinking. 82nd minute on.
Yeah.
Milan were the better team. They were pushing. They had to be. It was a cup, but too little, too late. Lazio, playing compact at that point, Matt. It's just really hard to break teams down when you go down like that. And this was your typical vintage Serie A. Whoever takes advantage of their chance first is going to win, and that's ultimately what happened. What did you see in terms of the tactics today? You were kind of like, I don't see this working over the course of 90 minutes.
Well, from a Lazio side, I saw a lot of what we saw in the game last weekend, right? Where we touched on this with Nick in the build up to that game, and obviously the post match with Sean. That you because of what Lazio has or doesn't have at their disposal, you almost kind of have an understanding of how they're going to play. They're going to try to play defensively. They're going to try to be smart with the ball. They're not going to have, many guys forward. They're willing to sit back, keep things very tight defensively, and maybe they're able to kind of come out of their shell and pick their moments strategically, right? And again, they weren't sitting here creating a tons of chances. It's not like Magnon had 6-7 saves and we were calling his name the entire game. It was a pretty lifeless 45 plus minutes, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
And, they were pinging the ball back and forth, ball going out, goal gets kicked, a lot of lost possession. So it really wasn't anything that was out of the norm for really both these teams. On the Milan side, though, and this was just brought up, and I was listening to the post game on Paramount with Marco and Matteo, and they make a great point, right? Milan don't have a striker, so now all of a sudden you go from playing Rafael Leao, who is a winger, like that's his primary role.
Yes.
Playing as a second striker or now the lead striker, and he's playing off a guy that is not a true striker by any stretch in Ruben Loftus-Cheek. So he's playing out of position next to a guy who is not a striker at all. They look up and down their roster. They don't have a striker that was fit for this game. Santiago Menez is still injured with an ankle injury. And he mentions you could have kept a Tammy, a Jovic, a Camarda, someone for Leao to play off of if this was the idea. Now, woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? Because we all ultimately talked about, this position for weeks and months, in the ramp up to the season and how that will impact ultimately the season for Milan from a attacking standpoint, at least. And it's surprising. And I've been saying this, and you've been saying this, we've all been saying this. Yes, they're first place. Yes, they're doing some things very well. Yes, they're getting some very, very big wins and having big moments against some of the better teams Serie A has to offer. But playing this way is not sustainable because a lot of these teams are going to see Milan don't have a striker. They don't have a guy that Leao can even play off of. Yes, Leao and Pulisic has moments where it works, but it really only works when Milan can play into space, when they can get on the break. They can run and go down the channels and play that sort of way. when you have to break down a team, those gritty mid to bottom of the table teams that are going to sit here and say, take the ball. We're not giving Rafa the space to run in behind and to beat guys 1v1 when he's running downhill. And that's what you're starting to see. So I'm very curious to see how, as we head into the end of December into January and so on, how a lot of these teams adjust to Milan in those reverse fixtures, the second fixtures that will come against Milan, because they're very predictable, right? Like, but when it works, it works. And I'm not saying, I'm not criticizing Allegri and saying it's this. He don't have a striker.
For now, like I'm not gonna like blame Allegri when was like, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but just for the people who are like making this point, when was the last time he actually had two forwards that he consistently start week in, week out this season? That hasn't been the case. He hasn't had that. If you want to say maybe Santi and Pulisic for a little bit, but Santi's sitting there missing the most big chances in the league that are created for him. And maybe he turns it around because he has to. I think his entire career at Milan is dependent upon that. But at the same time, for me, with the reverse fixtures, to your point, that's why the January market exists. But it's also why you have to get healthy. Because I think when you have Leao and Pulisic, or Leao and Santi, or Pulisic and Santi, I'm not even going to toss Nkunku into this because I still don't think he fits. I don't think he makes sense with this formation, with the 3-5-2. You can't do it. I think that tide will change a little bit. It's going to be just interesting to see. This lineup today was a throwaway. This seemed like Milan weren't even interested in winning for this.
It seems like a lineup you'd play against like a Torino.
Was this not reminiscent of that year where Milan were eliminated by Torino and De Ketelaere got his start, and there was all this over rotation? And I tweeted this out already. It's Supercoppa this month, Matt, and it's Serie A from January to May. That's literally all this club has. And our good friends at Milan Comps are already putting up the stuff. Ryder Brother in the chat is already saying Inter eliminated from the round of 16 of Coppa Italia. They won their 20th Scudetto. Didn't matter. They were up by like 30 points. Napoli last year eliminated in the round of 16 by Lazio, ended up going on to win the Scudetto. Milan eliminated like this. They obviously are not playing in Europe. So very, very similar to Napoli, except they were not in the Supercoppa. How about maybe the one positive, or there was something else that you want to like kind of like harp on? I think that once we see Milan's full 11 to full strength, I have a little bit differing opinions when it comes to them and how they're going to be able to play the rest of the season. Because now we truly know this is once a week. There is nothing else that's going to be getting in the way of them when it comes to spring, which all the more reason to bring in somebody to try and go for it. You have to exhaust all your options. This is literally nothing. And yeah, if you want to say real quick, I don't know if you agree with this, and somebody had made the comment in chat as well, there kind of is zero excuse not to win the title, right? Like, truthfully, if you're a club of this stature, you have those standards, you should not accept anything else but the title. I don't think Milan are going to do it. I just don't see it with this current squad today. I think that they would need Napoli, Roma, and obviously Inter to fall off somewhat. I don't truly think that they'll fall off enough. Milan haven't proven that they could knock off these smaller sides, to what your point was earlier, to rack up those points, because we know how good Milan have looked against the top sides this season when fully healthy. They're phenomenal. They're arguably the best team in Serie A when it comes to that. But when you're dropping points to Parma, when you're dropping points to Pisa, Cremonese, like, today was just. And again, the center back position, Matt, this is kind of why I need to see one come in January. Because God forbid it's Gabio goes down or Tomori goes down. That's a drop off.
We just mentioned this too, right? We said, like, they can't rest on their laurels. You can't rest on, we have a good performing starting 11. Like, these guys are playing. They're playing well as a team. And Allegri's got them playing to their potential. But, man, like, you're one or two injuries or players banged up for even a couple weeks, guys. This doesn't have to be a month, a big 8 to 12 week injury. This can be a matter of, hey, this guy's banged up, he's out for 4 weeks, and you play those games weekend and Tuesday or Wednesday, and he's missing 3-4 games, and now all of a sudden, man, this player's missing 3 or 4 games in a very crucial part of the season, and that's where you can really fumble the Scudetto. That's where you can really fumble even top 4, because you look at the nature of top 4 even, there's a lot of competition, guys. Milan haven't really experienced a lot of turbulence with their season. You can say it's down to the fact that, yes, they've played really well, extremely well against top clubs, and they've managed enough results against everyone else. Although, again, of course, they dropped points against Parma and Pisa and Cremonese. But you look at this team and you're thinking, like, they have in games like Torino, in games like Sassuolo, especially coming off the back of this defeat and bowing out of the Coppa Italia, they have to show a little bit of a bully mentality. You have to kind of, I need to see you clobber a team or two. I need to see it.
Yeah, they haven't had a performance
that's in their
like
DNA. I'm not saying it's the Allegri way. I'm not saying they have the personnel up front with no striker to do it. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they have enough quality in them, despite all those things, that I need you to go and kind of bully and batter around a Sassuolo. No disrespect to them, but if you want to show me that you're a real legitimate Scudetto team and you are going to leverage the fact that you have the one competition going forward, excluding the Super Cup, show me a little something to end the year and bully on some of these teams, because the mark of a really good team is, or a Scudetto winning team is, yes, you win ugly, but Milan have won ugly. And this is a team that's led by Max Allegri, so they're going to win ugly a lot. But you see the teams like Inter in recent years, Napoli in recent years. They've also clobbered some teams along the way to make things easy, so you can pull those guys off the pitch and you rotate other guys in. That's what Milan need to start doing, because, again, the way they're playing with the amount of depth or lack thereof that they do have, on top of the fact that, again, the striker is a big concern, this isn't the same Milan team that he had when they won the Scudetto in his first.
Because the league is largely not the same either.
Correct.
Like it's just, no offense to the Napoli and Sarri teams and the Roma Di Francesco teams that were very good. It's just totally different when the league is like this. It's just not the same. You don't have the competitors top to bottom, Bologna's, Como's of the world. It's even those mid-table teams, the bottom tier teams in Serie A those days were pitiful. They were woeful. And it's not to take away anything from Juventus. Juventus were clearly the best team, but it is a different beast. And Milan don't have the spending power like Juve did at those times, where they were just like, Napoli, Roma, we're going to take your best players and we're just going to keep winning these titles. They took Pjanic, they took Higuain. Like, it's just not the same, obviously. I think Max has done a great job. There's certain things within this team that I just kind of don't get. I know. I agree with you, John. I'm calm too, but I thought your comment was crazy, bro. This is crazy. Saying Rafael Leao is not a game changer is crazy, John. We appreciate the support. That's just crazy.
I think you notice, and I just want to comment on that too, because I think I think, again, I'm not giving individual players an excuse. I do want to point out the fact that, as I just mentioned, right, he's playing alongside Ruben Loftus-Cheek. That's a second striker that you're playing off of, and you're playing in a position, again, like, that's not your primary position. We all know what Rafa's primary position is. We've seen it for years since he arrived here. He needs to absolutely get that attempt with the left foot on goal. Absolutely. You want to talk about his finishing? Fine. But this idea that he's not a game changer when he's basically playing out of position, he's won you several games with.
He just beat Lazio the other day.
Lazio. What was it? The Fiorentina game. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. Like, you can't be selective and say this guy's not a game changer when he has a performance like this today, but then he'll go and drop 2 goals and a goal and assist against the team, and everyone's like, well, he should do it against them. So which one is it?
Yeah, the assist against Roma as well. Like,
which is it? You know what I'm saying?
I think he deserves more credit, John. I think that's a bit harsh. Now let's talk about pretty much kind of the only positive that I saw in the long run today. Ardon Jashari is good. He's a good player. Elite, at the very least, quality. Like, as a whole, 90 minutes. Definitely a little shaky on the ball. Some of his backwards passes were off. I think personally, when we're sitting here giving Pulisic, Leao, all these other players coming back from injuries, breaks, we got a guy here who didn't feature in any of the minutes. He had not played since Coppa Italia against Bari. He came in and
he played the friendly, that one meaningless friendly.
Well, that was before Bari. But the point is,
during the recent international break, he played.
Oh, well, whatever. I meant like in an actual competitive
official game.
Right. That's hard to do. And I thought that pass by him was actually
You
sensational.
saw glimpses in this game.
There was just, he switched the field a few times too, where you're like, okay, he has that sort of quality, really good work rate. We didn't see much of that dribbling. Lazio is a little bit more difficult to break down, obviously, with that environment. We just were explaining that how
Yeah.
organized they are to kind of like dribble past them. This obviously is not the Belgian Pro League, so that's kind of difficult to maneuver. But overall, with Jashari, I saw glimpses of a player that could provide quality service. We might be seeing him start alongside Modric against Torino
Maybe
now.
Modric just thrust it a little bit more forward.
Yeah, potentially. That's kind of what we're gonna find out with Yashadi, right? Richie today, I thought was a bit timid at times. There's always like these moments in games with Samuel Ricci, which again reminds me of Jorginho, where like try and break a line forward, try and play it forward, try and take a risk of a pass. Richie is a little too conservative for my liking sometimes. I understand and respect what he brings, but he isn't like who Milan need him to be in certain situations. I think once he kind of gains more confidence in that sort of profile and role, then he can sort of pick that up. Because as of right now, he's just sort of like we know him. He's just cleaning up the dirty work, making simple passes, nothing too dangerous to put the team in a bad defensive position. But he kind of rarely puts the team in great offensive positions, which is something I want to see more of. But we'll start with Yashadi. What did you think of his debut for Milan from a starting perspective?
I thought Yoshari was fine. I mean, I think relative to expectations, relative to the environment, Lazio are no lay down. They're no pushovers. They're playing at home. They're coming off the back of the defeat against Milan on the weekend, so you knew they're going to bring a little bit of something extra. The game, the way it was going, there was a lot of lateral, short, intermediate passes. Nothing for really him. Not many opportunities for him to carry the ball forward and show some of the things that he showed at Club Brugge last year and in your previous years in the Champions League, right? But I think when he was on the ball, he was tidy. He was playing more at the base of the midfield three, with obviously Rabiot being that sort of box to box, and Ricci didn't really feel like he was belonging, if that makes sense at all, as far as that three, right? Because I think you look at Ricci and you look at his skill set, you look at what he can bring, and that is typically somewhere more so at the base where he can receive the ball from the defense, he can progress the ball forward, and those sorts of things, and get it to the creative players, the players that can drum up chances and move the ball into the final phase. So I thought Yoshari was fine. I mean, I think I wanted to see what the fitness levels look like, right? Did he look like lethargic? Did he look like he was like noticeably out of shape? And obviously they're professionals, right? He's been training for weeks. Maybe he hasn't played a ton of minutes, as you mentioned, but I thought he was fine. I mean, I think the fact that he was able to showcase that long ball that he had a couple times created a great chance to Estupinian, who did well to feed Leao, and Leao just skied it into the stands. So that's what you really wanted to see, right? I looked at some of the stats before as you were talking. 80 of 86 passing. I think it was like 90+%. He had a couple long balls successfully as well. Obviously, the one I just mentioned. So there were some glimpses, guys. I know everyone's going to go and when it's defeat, I feel like if you had this performance from Yashari in a win, people would have been like, Yashari looked really good. We really have something here. But when you lose, I feel like everyone kind of highlights and spotlights oh, well, I don't know. You didn't really show me much. And they kind of like really dissect everything and are really more critical than I think is deserving of the performance he put in. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, though, because if he plays well and he starts to grow, what does that do for some of the other players in this team, right? I think like Rabiot and Modric are 2 out of your 3 starting midfielders, you would assume, going forward. Like those 2 players are unseatable. Like you can't take them out. Now it's Fofana, it's Loftus-Cheek, it's Ricci, and it's Yashari. So that's where it's going to be interesting to see is who can adapt. Can Ricci adapt? So far, it looks like he doesn't really play that well in that number 8 role.
No, he's on a number 8. Ricci's on a number 8.
Is someone who is kind of box to box. He can carry the ball forward, but Rabiot plays that role.
I think, yeah. Well, with also,
you know what I'm saying? So I think there's room for Yashari to assert himself in this midfield equation and actually take over the job.
Well, this is also kind of what my point has been for weeks now, is that they're not fully healthy in both of those departments to evaluate those things. I think there's certainly very obvious stuff like Samuel Ricci is not a number 8. He's never been a number 8. and him being that is just a silly development. And he should strictly sort of be Luka Modric's backup this year. And if he could fill in the spaces against other matchups, that's fine. But again, yeah, Michael, we said he needed to score those. We were always like there to like say he needs to improve on those things. But I mean, he's been finishing very well all season long. I thought Loftus-Cheek missed some really bad chances as well with his heading. But yeah, to your point, it's like, I think it depends how long Fofana is out, right? Because now we're seeing Jashari, if he's able to perform like that, we could see a situation develop like it's Bartesaghi and Estupiñán, where Allegri knows we give a little bit of leeway for Parma, and Estupiñán, it backfired. Estupiñán was not good enough, and now Bartesaghi pretty much has solidified himself in that. We were not shocked by the rotation today, because you can't just be playing a 19-year-old kid every week. He's not Lamine Yamal and like all these other studs. He's going to need that. And yeah, Santi has to do something. Santi and Nkunku are the two players that have to step up, because the goal and a goal contribution to minute ratio that Pulisic and Leao both have, they're off the hook, in my opinion, in terms of like, obviously you want them to show up every week, but in terms of like guys who should be here for the long term and who I could rely upon, those two right there, I'm not convinced. And guess what? Like, who has more goals in Serie A than Nkunku and Santi? Francesco Camarda does. So that's a problem when you're heading into December. We're already a week into December, right? And I'm not trying to rip on certain players, but standards are standards. If you're not producing at the end of the day, which is the only thing that matters, there's the door.
What's interesting too about Santi as well, like again, this is just kind of something that's been kind of swirling around in my head, is unlike in previous years where you've kind of looked at the striker situation and you look at it and say it's pretty much up for grabs. I mean, we've seen moments over the past couple of years where Luka Jovic is doing really well in the Europa League. Maybe this is his job. Maybe he's going to take the job, right? He'll go through stretches where he scored goals and he was starting games and he was getting a lot of minutes, more so than a regular number 3 striker would get. And then you saw him drift away. And then last year, right? It was Santi, it was the Camarda, couple moments here and there. But then Sergio Conceição was like, Tammy's my guy. Like, I'm going to take Tammy. Tammy's going to do what I could do. And honestly, Tammy did the role really well. He scored some goals for Milan down the stretch against Roma. He also was a good hold-up player. You scored the big goal against Inter in the Super Cup as well. And then, you lose essentially your entire strike force this summer, right? And obviously Santi comes in, he's your starting guy. So you'd think Santi would come into this job is completely mine. There's no pressure for someone to take this job from me. Nkunku, they brought him in for 40 million. I don't care if he costs 40 million. He is not a true striker. So my job should be, I should feel empowered to come into this job that for a club that I love and want to play for, and I want to prove myself that this is my job. I don't have anybody to look at and say that someone's going to take this from me. But then you could look on the other side and think psychologically, well, does that make him too comfortable? When you don't have a threat for your job and you don't have someone that is an out-and-out striker that can maybe unseat you and take that job, do you feel a little bit like I'm too comfortable? I'm missing my chances. But, he started every game. He was starting games when he was
missing. No, yeah, listen, I've said it plenty of times. Like, I don't care. I could only digest you playing well off the ball so many times without you scoring.
Yeah, you're a striker. Yeah, you're not even a backup striker. Like, if you're a backup striker,
you were purchased for 30 million. Yeah. And to the point, I was talking with Ollie Fisher. I was talking to Ollie Fisher of Sempre Milan about this, and they had an article written up. Essentially, those bonuses we would assume Santi Jimenez has not hit that would go to 35 million. Again, this is just factoring finances and how Furlani's brain works and how that will coincide with what Tade and Allegri want. If Santi isn't fulfilling those needs, Milan, at the end of the day, if they can get 30 million from a Premier League club, they're going to be with amortization, or however the fuck you say it. There you go. Thank you. You say Modric, I say that. Listen, you know how they're going to work though. If they know that they could make a slight profit or at least break even on a striker, they're going to sell him to try and get the guy that the new sporting director and manager want. Because again, this is not Santi's guy. But it goes back to the Nkunku thing being incredibly stupid overall. I don't think Tammy was worth the money. The amount and fee that Roma wanted, which was like 30 million, and then he wanted to be paid as much as Leao. I don't think he deserved any of that.
No.
And I like Tammy, just not a big fan of him. But yeah, Okafor in preseason has looked unreal. I think it works for him in that league, John. I think it's really physically predicated in the Premier League. That's why we see Chukwueze doing very well. He's got 5 goal contributions already in like 200 something minutes. Yeah, but for me, at the end of the day, I would consider bringing back Camarda in January. I actually would. I think at this point, it's not working out at Lecce. They have a really poor setup there. I don't think it's going to improve. And I know the pushback on this and the idea of this is that you can't or shouldn't rely on a 17-year-old, or your January signing shouldn't be a 17-year-old who has 1 goal in league history to try and help you get the league title. But for me, I just see a talented player who doesn't really have a situation that works for him. It's a position of need for the current club. Bartosagi, we saw once he got consistent playing time, playing with good players, we saw a player develop there. I think.
I also think too, like people, and
Go
just to
ahead.
kind of jump in on that too, is I think
Go
people
for it.
might. I'm not saying he's the way. We're going to bring him back in January, and he's going to start, thundering home goals, and we're going to win the Scudetto. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But you saw last year when Camarda, he got minutes, and he obviously showed clear immaturity. The physical side of his game has grown a lot, but when we look at the game speed, right, and playing top flight football versus the Primavera and Milan Futuro, right, it's a whole different animal, whole different realm.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to look at the player development that did take place or didn't take place last year for some of these younger players with a large grain of salt. You had 2 coaches come in and out. The usage, the way of playing, that season in general was a mess. You kind of have to throw a lot of that out for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Camarda, we should bring him back and kind of break that sort of agreement that we have with Lecce. I'm not saying that. But I think to your point, like, I think there's something to be said about young players who are able to get the most out of the development stages of their career, like Bartosagi and Camarda, playing in a more stable environment with a much better coach and coaching system, with a much better group of players collectively than we saw last year. That's where my head's at. I'm not saying you bring Camarda back and you start him the rest of the way, but I think to your point, I think it's pretty clear with Bartosagi, where it's like, it's amazing where this is a guy that people were saying maybe we should loan. He's not going to get a lot of minutes. He's only there because of, as he's a Milan youth player and whatever.
Yeah.
And then you look at him and you're like, see, Allegri's playing him and he's a good player and he's 19 years old. I'm a big believer. I don't care what age you are. If you can ball and you can ball, you play. Facts, no problem. I don't care if the guy that you're fighting minutes for is making millions, because Estupiñán cost Milan a decent amount of money, coming from a Premier League team, and he's getting beat out for the job by a 19-year-old, right? Who is showing things, yes, but a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you that you look around Serie A, you even look around Inter, right? Esposito. If you could play, you could play.
Espo is a couple years old. I like him. I think he's a really talented player. I think he's going to do well at Inter. Right? Of course. But just so people don't, I'm not saying you're doing this, just in general, people can do this Camarda Pio thing. It's just that both clubs produce really talented strikers. One is a few years older than the other, and that matters a lot at that age and position. But good on Pio. That was a great goal by him yesterday. I got to give props. I really like the kid. I just think that club is rotten. Allegri comments. We need to be angry about the elimination. We had a goal and we didn't achieve it. Wrong, easy balls today. Who wins is always right. It's just Italian translations are funny. Who scored one first? He was just saying the game was really tough. It's just whoever takes their chances is going to win. And we could have defended on the corner. Jashari had a good game. So, yeah. Forza Pio, what is this, an Interista in here? Well, we're happy some Inter fans are in here helping us. At least like the video, good sir. I would say good win by Inter, but I just don't want to say that. Why bring him back? Allegri will play the 3-5-2 till he dies. Listen, I mean, the project is a project. It should be on the same page with everybody. And that's what bothers me most about the direction of the club and a lot of people, because the project doesn't make sense as a whole, still to this day. I'm very happy where they are in the league. Obviously, it's hard to argue against that. But at the same time, when you're still purchasing players like Christopher Nkunku for like 40 million, and you know you're playing this formation and the manager did not really request him, that matters. Oh, and by the way, whatever opportunity they had for Dusan Vlahovic, which I don't think was going to happen, Matt, he's also missing the next 3 months. So he's not even going to be available as an option. So just to point that out over there, we'll see what happens next on December 8th. Milan face off against Torino. Milan have only beaten Torino once within the past like 10 fixtures, Matt. Do you know what game that was?
Was it like the second match day a couple years ago?
It was during their, I don't believe they won.
Pulisic's first season?
No.
The last time Milan beat Torino?
Yeah, pretty sure. Pulisic had his penalty saved against Torino. I believe it. There's only here. Let me pull up the thing because it was a really funny statistic to look at. I believe we beat them one time.
I have it up. So
or it could be against Torino.
They won 2-1. They won 2-1 in February. Then no, I'm going back the other time. Hold on.
No, we haven't. There are so many fixtures.
20.
One of our
last time we beat them was 2023 August 4-1. Pulisic scored. Giroud scored twice.
So it has to be away then.
Okay, so yeah, that may be the status.
We've only beaten them once.
Since then, Torino 3-1, then a draw 2-2, then Torino 2-1. So I mean, yeah, like we don't really.
The 7-0 game is the last time Milan beat Torino away. In
2021.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Ante Rebic hat trick.
Yes. I believe he's still the last hat trick. I think he's the last hat trick Milan had.
That's crazy.
So 12 matches. Milan have won one game that was 7-0. It's crazy. So away to Torino, one of their tougher fixtures. I say they're due. And again, we're going to be having hopefully a guest on for that. We'll reveal that.
You don't have any Torino content creators, I don't think, but
I do not know any at all. So yeah, we appreciate everybody who is tuned in. We had over 300 of you, a lot of you coming from X, I presume. And if you were here on YouTube, Inter fan, Milan fan, whatever club you support,
thank you for supporting.
Please like the video. Check out the podcast in its full form. Might grab a clip or two from this. Short form video is up on the reaction as always. Santangelo has been a little consistent on videos, so maybe we have a new beast in the making to help out with content.
I'm no Lex, I'm no Marco, but
there's not a lot of bells and whistles, just info, and that's always good too. So yeah, check those out. Be sure to follow and subscribe to that Milan podcast. 5 stars everywhere, Apple, Spotify. Again, Matt_Santangelo at AC Milan Bros on Twitter, at Matt_Santa22 on Instagram, that Milan podcast everywhere, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and yeah, Twitter. And that's pretty much it for me because it's just Martino Pucci everywhere. I am going to have content out tomorrow. World Cup draw is tomorrow, so pretty important. We'll find out where the United States is going to be placed group-wise and city-wise, and we'll see if Italy join them on March 31st. So, yeah, any hopes for Team USA's group, Matt and Pulisic?
I don't know. Something tells me we're going to get a right? I'm Italian-American. I'm born in the USA. I'm Italian. I'm Polish. So I kind of follow all three, I guess, right? But I think for USA, I think they're going to get not a very, very hard group, but they're going to obviously get one or two team that's going to be that is like a European power. I think they're going to get one of those European powers and another like team that's like on the come up that, you know, is going to make things difficult. But that's a good test, right? Like I'm a big believer in play. Like that's a measuring stick. Okay, how good are you as a football nation? Do you want to play easy teams and people are going to look down on you and diminish you as like, oh, you're going to play beat these teams in CONCACAF? So I think they do need, at this time with this group, everyone's been talking about this generation, right? They need those opponents that can really kind of gauge how strong the U.S. men's national team is and going forward can be.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that any group doesn't matter to me with Team USA. I think that they have to go in with a humbled attitude and not take anything for granted. Every single minute that they're out there on the pitch has to be exhausted with the best energy possible.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, that kind of stuff helps you win cups. It just, to me, there is no way that the expectations should be met with arrogance, if that makes sense. I don't want this team thinking that they're so entitled, which is what we've seen in the past, because this is a more talented squad than usual. Past couple of international breaks have been a little bit better, but there's always going to be drama with the U.S. men's national team because a lot of the way this entire program is set up is due to arrogance. It's due to people thinking that they're,
A lot of people think that, like, oh, we should be competing with the powers.
They're still playing Tim Ream at center back, who I love and respect. Tim Ream is still center back.
Yeah.
What else do you want? No one else puts a 40-year-old on their national team that isn't Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi.
Isn't playing for like a pretty elite European team or in a top 5 league.
Or as one of the greatest players of all time.
Talking about Thiago Silva, like those.
No disrespect to Tim Ream is a talent thing. If you can't replace Tim Ream, then you got bigger fucking issues. Simple. But anyways, we'll be excited to check that out. Thank you guys so much. And hey, maybe next year Milan will win Coppa Italia. Doubt it though. See it.